The unexpected discovery. The night that shattered my world began like any other winter evening. I'm David Reyes, an accountant with a stable career and what I believed was a rock-solid marriage to Emma, my wife of 5 years. We had met during our final year of college, two ambitious professionals with dreams of building a life together. Emma had recently landed a job as a secretary at Horizon Investments, a prestigious hedge fund that seemed to be her ticket to professional success. That fateful December night, I found myself overlooking a hot tub scene that would forever change my perception of our relationship. Emma, who I thought I knew better than anyone, was engaged in an intimate act with two men. The way they moved, the looks they exchanged, it was painfully clear this wasn't a momentary lapse or a misunderstanding. This was a calculated, ongoing betrayal that had been happening right under my nose. The shock was visceral. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone to record what I was seeing, a part of me hoping that somehow this wasn't real. But the video evidence was undeniable. The woman I had married, the person I had shared my deepest vulnerabilities with, was multiple men in what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated series of encounters. Looking back, the signs had been there. The late nights at the office, the increasingly elaborate explanations about company parties, the way she would become defensive when I showed any interest in her work events, they were all pieces of a puzzle I had deliberately ignored. Love has a way of making you blind, of helping you construct elaborate narratives that protect you from painful truths. The missed signs. As I began to piece together the puzzle of Emma's betrayal, I realized how meticulously she had constructed her double life. The monthly company parties she'd attend, always returning late, or sometimes not until the next day, should have been my first warning. Her increasingly elaborate explanations about work events, the way she would discourage me from joining her, the subtle changes in her behavior, they were all red flags I had willfully ignored. When the Christmas party invitation arrived, Emma's reluctance for me to attend was palpable. "You'll be bored," she'd say repeatedly. "Financial discussions are tedious, and it's just a work event," but now I understood the real reason behind her resistance. She wasn't protecting me from boredom, she was protecting her secret life, carefully compartmentalizing her professional world from our personal one. I remembered the conversations leading up to the party. Emma had casually mentioned bringing swim trunks in December, of all times. "We usually end up at my boss's penthouse," she explained with an almost rehearsed casualness. "He has a nice hot tub." At the time, I had found it strange but hadn't pressed further. Now those words echoed with a sinister meaning. The subtle manipulations became clear. She had been grooming me, slowly desensitizing me to increasingly inappropriate behaviors. The way she would talk about her colleagues, the late-night texts, the mysterious work trips, everything was part of a carefully constructed narrative designed to keep me complacent and unsuspecting. A facade of normalcy. The company Christmas party was a masterclass in deception. From the moment we arrived, Emma's behavior was calculated. She introduced me to Rachel, a colleague who seemed to know far more about our marriage than I did. Rachel's knowing smirk, the way she looked at me, suggested a shared secret that would soon be brutally revealed. Within moments of our arrival, Emma drifted away with Rachel and several male colleagues, leaving me alone and increasingly uncomfortable. I watched the festive crowd, nursing a beer, feeling like a stranger in my own wife's professional world. The alcohol flowed freely, and the atmosphere was charged with an intimacy that felt inappropriate for a corporate event. I observed the interactions around me, the subtle touches, the lingering glances, the inside jokes that seemed to exclude me entirely. Emma moved through the crowd with a confidence I had never seen before, touching colleagues, laughing a little too loudly, drinking a little too much. She was performing a version of herself that I had never witnessed. As hours passed and Emma made no effort to include me or even check on me, I realized this was intentional. She was creating space, setting the stage for what was to come. The party was not just a social event, it was a carefully orchestrated prelude to a much larger betrayal. The brutal revelation. At Michael's penthouse, the facade completely crumbled. Emma was already in the hot tub with two senior partners when we arrived, her body language intimate and uninhibited. Rachel approached me with a matter-of-fact demeanor that suggested this was nothing out of the ordinary. "I thought you knew," she said casually, as if discussing the weather. "Emma's been involved with multiple colleagues for months. It's an open secret at the company." The details she shared were graphic and humiliating. Videos on my phone confirmed her words, multiple encounters, filmed and shared among her colleagues with a level of casual brutality that suggested this was routine, not exceptional. Each revelation was like a knife twisting deeper into my heart, destroying every illusion I had maintained about our marriage. Rachel's matter-of-fact tone was perhaps the most devastating part. To her, this was normal workplace behavior. The boundaries of professional and personal, of commitment and betrayal, had been completely obliterated. Emma wasn't just having an affair, she was participating in a systemic culture of sexual exploitation that treated relationships as casual commodities. The confrontation. The private study became our final battleground. I pulled Emma aside, the video evidence displayed on my phone, my hands trembling with a mixture of rage and profound heartbreak. The visual proof was undeniable, multiple encounters, filmed with a casual brutality that suggested this was a well-established pattern. When confronted, her response was not remorse, but a casual, almost dismissive explanation. "We were just having fun," she said, as if discussing a harmless game. "It doesn't mean I don't love you." Those words, spoken with such incredible detachment, represented the final, irreparable fracture in our marriage. I removed my wedding ring, placed it in her hand, and told her we were done. No dramatic screaming, no extended argument, just a cold, final statement of ending. Her subsequent pleas and tears meant nothing in the face of such profound betrayal. The person I thought I knew had been a complete fabrication. The emotional distance I felt in that moment was absolute. Years of shared memories of building a life together were reduced to nothing more than an elaborate lie. Emma's betrayal wasn't just sexual, it was a systematic deconstruction of trust, of the fundamental contract of marriage. The immediate aftermath. That night became a methodical process of dismantling our shared life. I moved with a cold precision that surprised even me. Each action was deliberate, packing Emma's belongings, changing the locks, separating our financial accounts. It was as if I had transformed into a different version of myself, calculated, unemotional, focused on survival. The phone call started almost immediately. Her colleagues, some apologetic, some threatening, seemed more concerned about potential professional repercussions than the human drama they had created. Michael, one of the senior partners, even had the audacity to call, suggesting this was all a misunderstanding. "We thought you were okay with this," he said, as if consensual betrayal somehow made it acceptable. I documented everything. Every message, every call, every piece of evidence became potential ammunition for the legal battle I knew was coming. My personal space transformed into a war room of sorts, with printed emails, screenshots, and carefully organized files detailing the extent of the betrayal. Friends and family were shocked, offering support but struggling to comprehend the depth of what had occurred. My parents, married for 40 years, were particularly devastated. "How could someone do this?" my mother asked, her voice breaking. I had no answer that could adequately explain the inexplicable breach of trust. Legal preparations. Margaret Thompson, my lawyer, became my strategic partner in navigating the complex emotional and legal landscape. She was pragmatic, compassionate, and thoroughly professional. We discussed not just a standard divorce, but potential legal actions against Horizon Investments for workplace misconduct. "The evidence is compelling," Margaret explained during our first detailed meeting. We spread out photographs, emails, video evidence, a tragic mosaic of betrayal. We have grounds for not just divorce, but potentially an alienation of affection lawsuit. The legal strategy was multifaceted. We would pursue divorce on grounds of infidelity, potential civil action against Emma's employers, financial separation and asset division, emotional distress considerations. Margaret was careful. We want to expose the truth she advised, but we also want to ensure you're protected legally and emotionally. These cases can become complex quickly. The financial implications were significant. Despite Emma earning comparably to me, her actions had created a breach that went beyond monetary considerations. This was about dignity, about holding those responsible accountable. The emotional turbulence. The weeks following the discovery were an emotional roller coaster. Anger would give way to profound sadness, then resolve, then back to anger. Some days I would find myself laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Other days, the pain was so intense it felt physical. I took time off work, grateful for a supportive boss who had experienced a similar betrayal years ago. "Take the time you need," he told me. "Healing isn't linear." My routine became a form of therapy. Intense workouts, meditation, journaling, anything to process the emotional tsunami that had swept through my life. I joined a support group for individuals dealing with infidelity, finding solace in shared experiences. Emma's attempts at communication oscillated between desperate reconciliation attempts and angry accusations. "You're overreacting," she would say in texts and voicemails. Each message revealed more about her character. Her inability to truly understand the depth of her betrayal was, in itself, another form of injury. The process of reconstruction was deliberate and comprehensive. I wasn't just rebuilding my personal life, I was reimagining my entire existence. Professional opportunities that I had previously overlooked suddenly seemed possible. I enrolled in additional certification courses, expanded my professional network, and began to see this period as a transformative opportunity. Horizon Investments, faced with potential scandal, became increasingly cooperative. The senior partners who had participated in these activities suddenly became very interested in a quiet resolution. Depositions were taken, settlements discussed, all while maintaining a veneer of professional courtesy. I started therapy, not as a victim, but as someone committed to personal growth. "This isn't about her," my therapist would remind me. "This is about you, about who you choose to become." A new beginning. As months passed, the acute pain of betrayal transformed into a resolute determination. The divorce was finalized, financial settlements reached, and I began to see this not as an ending, but as a profound beginning. Emma attempted periodically to re-establish contact, but I remained firm. Some betrayals are unforgivable, some trust cannot be rebuilt. My future would be defined by my choices, not by her actions. I learned to trust again, not immediately in romantic relationships, but in myself. I learned that vulnerability is not weakness, but a form of strength. That trust is earned, not given freely. That love requires continuous choice, not just initial commitment. The story of my marriage had ended, but my story was just beginning. And this time I would be the sole author.